If you are a supervisor, if you're a manager, if you are a compassionate peer or friend, or an HR professional, sometimes we are stuck and we don't know what to do in the moment when people are locked into their feelings, locked like loggerheads into an I don't want to let go of this. They're walking in their wounds, in their past. They're replaying them like DVDs in their minds, constantly regurgitating the stories, entrenching themselves in their wounds, in their pain, in their dramas, and in their traumas. And then they let them spill out onto others. And they engage in this emotional litigation, defending their own points of view, defending why they shouldn't have to let go. And in those situations, some of our most well trained, well skilled mediation techniques, conflict management techniques, resolution techniques don't do the trick. What we can do is facilitate forgiveness because that's what they are stuck in, a state of unforgiveness. And this doesn't mean that we become pastors. It doesn't mean we become psychotherapists. It means we become facilitators of self-reflection, holding mirrors up to another person. And we just ask them to just think, just reflect. And gradually, as we ask them to engage in self-reflection and some critical thinking, wisdom thinking, they nudge themselves out of some of their pain. They challenge their own pain. They challenge their own states of mind that have been locked into place. And they may not like us for doing it, for asking those questions, but we are being servant leaders when we do so. So what are servant leaders? They're based on the forgiveness cycle that you just saw. And there are 15 parts of the forgiveness cycle, and you don't have to ask all 15 questions. You may ask a few over time, but they're self-reflective. And as you provocatively ask these questions in compassionate manners and wisdom manners, you say, I want you to just think about this. Because as we move to trust building, relationship building, or reconciliation, or team building, or making new agreements, you have a part in this. You have to be willing to let go of something. You have to be willing to reconsider something. And these questions are going to help you do that. So what are some of the questions? Since part of the forgiveness process includes affirmation and acknowledgement, some of the questions might be, well, have you affirmed one that's holding on to the pain? Have you affirmed in the possibilities of the future of any movement? Because if you haven't even affirmed that there's possibilities for movement, then what are we doing? All you're doing is wanting us to rehear your pain over and over and over again. All you're doing is wanting everyone else to change. Because you haven't even affirmed that there's possibilities for movement. Have you affirmed that there's a possibility that this was a mistake, what happened in the past, a misjudgment? Have you affirmed that there's goodness in some of these other people? Or have you demonized them so much? So what are you affirming? And can you create some wiggle room within yourself? Part of the forgiveness process is acknowledgement. And so one of the provocative questions is asking, well, what are you hoping that the other person will acknowledge? What do you need to be acknowledged? That's important to you. And are you acknowledging where you're at right now? So what do you need acknowledged to give you dignity and respect? But also, what do you need to acknowledge? Are you offering dignity and respect? Other parts of the forgiveness process include accountabilities and acceptances. So you might ask questions like, well, what do you want someone to take accountability for? And are there accountabilities that need to be shared? Maybe something wasn't said that needed to be said. Maybe there were misjudgments on different parties' parts. And that's not shaming or blaming anyone. And accountability is a naming. It's not a shaming or a blaming. It's a naming without judgment. There may be need to have acceptances. And acceptances is always, it means that you ask someone to accept the here and the now, the new starting points. Because sometimes when people are in unforgiveness, they want to go back and fix the past. They keep on saying, well, why did you do this? And why didn't you do that? And that's wanting to go back and fix the past. And no one can do that. So you just say, well, this is where I was in the past. This is where I am now. I have a new understanding. This is where they're at right now in their abilities or their maturity or their skills. So can we start there, right here? Acceptance doesn't mean agreement, that I agree with their behavior or their treatment. You can still set up boundaries, but do you accept that this is the new starting point? Because some people in unforgiveness say, no, I don't accept that at all. And they're unwilling to even move to that new starting point. Other parts of the forgiveness process include apologies and amends. So, provocative question when you're facilitating forgiveness might be, are you waiting for an apology? But also, what will that apology do for you? Some people might say, well, it'll make me feel better. Okay. Will it take away all your pain? Will you want more after that? What will happen after that? Is it like a salve for your wound? Sometimes apologies are, and they can help people move on, but sometimes they're not even enough. Sometimes people need amends, stitching back together of an action, of a behavior. An amend doesn't correct the past, but it changes a behavior so that the past doesn't repeat itself. You say, well, do you need an amend? A new behavior, a new promise. What is that? And is that reasonable? Is it possible? Sometimes you need to ask questions about actions or reactions. So, are you stuck in this loop of every time they act on something or hesitate acting because now they're afraid of you, you're reacting? So, do we need to think about that? Sometimes the next step in the process is ascertainment of reconciliation, that people are asking, well, I need to reconcile, or do I need to reconcile, or how do I reconcile? And you might, as a facilitator, ask, well, let's ascertain what type of reconciliation you might want right at this point. It might not be a new relationship, or it might be a different kind of relationship with new boundaries, or it might not be any relationship. Maybe just you reconcile and come to terms and come to peace with what happened in the past, and you're okay then. And you don't have to work with or relate to that person again. That's okay. But be at peace at least. And you can then have respect between you when you're working. So reconciliation is to come to peace with, come to terms with someone or something. So there's lots of questions, and there's more pieces of the forgiveness process that include self-awareness, um, uh, analyzing one's own behaviors, making some allowances, anticipating some fallbacks, even appreciating the attempts that other people make and appreciating your own growth. And there's questions that go with all of that. But I hope for now that these little insights and some of the provocative questions will be of help to you as you become a facilitator of forgiveness at work or in your own life or even within yourself. My name is Rob Shout. I'm with Power Skills Training and Development and Shout It Out LLC. I hope I can be of service to you, and I hope our team can be of service to you, either in training or coaching or in any of the articles or the books that we offer. Thanks for joining us. I hope to see you soon.